Portugal, a colonial powerhouse known for its stunning architecture, incredible culture, and awesome surfing, now finds itself at the mercy of turbulent economic and social tides. Once a fearless leader in the seas of global exploration, the bravery of legendary explorers like Vasco da Gama have today been replaced by unforgiving economic struggles, panic-stricken policies, and recurring challenges, not from uncharted waters, but from within the country itself. And the implications extend far beyond Portugal's borders. The country's struggles are having a ripple effect, threatening the stability of Europe. Welcome to Living History. Portugal's status as a maritime powerhouse dates back to the Age of Discovery. During the 15th and 16th centuries, it established a vast global empire spanning territories in Africa, Asia, and South America. This period marked the zenith of Portugal's economic and political power. However, by the dawn of the 20th century, its influence had dramatically capsized. The early 1900s were marked by significant political instability and economic turmoil. Portugal's economy was riddled with substantial debt after decades of costly and prolonged colonial wars. The monarchy was overthrown in 1910, leading to a turbulent Republican era. Its economic plight deepened in the 1920s as a result of World War I and the Great Depression. Competition from other European powers further weakened its trade monopolies, but this was only the beginning of Portugal's troubles. In fact, Portugal's economic challenges today are in many ways a legacy of its colonial past, an inefficient autocratic administration, and the complex evolution of its socio-economic structure. You see, following the economic plight of the early 1900s, widespread public unrest called for a more reliable and stable governance. As if waiting for the signal, Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, a notable economist and politician, emerged as a key figure. Salazar extended to power in 1932 and spearheaded the government until 1968, marking one of the longest leadership tenures in modern European history. Salazar's regime, known as the Estado Novo, or New State, was a distinctive blend of authoritarianism and corporatism. What is that, you might ask? Well, corporatism developed social and economic policies based on the value of corporate groups, such as agricultural, science, labor, and the military, rather than individual market competition or class divisions. During the 1950s, under the shadow of this corporatist regime, Portugal's economy soared, achieving a remarkable annual growth rate of 5.7%. But if you think things were going great, think again. You see, this golden era of prosperity was overshadowed by the rising tempests of colonial unrest and calls for independence. And by 1973, the financial strain of Portugal's colonial wars had become severe. These conflicts, especially in African territories like Angola, Guinea-Bissau, and Mozambique, were costly, consuming almost a third of the national budget. Funds needed for domestic infrastructure were instead used for overseas wars against African colonies, leaving schools, hospitals, and public services suffering. Things were not going well, and they would get even worse. 1974 marked a pivotal year in Portugal's history as public sentiment surged into a revolutionary wave. The Carnation Revolution, as it was later known, not only toppled the old regime but also heralded the end of colonial wars. However, this newfound liberty came at an even steeper price, a mountain of debt that soared to 90% of the country's GDP by 1983. Inflation peaked at over 25%. By the early 1980s, Portugal had no choice but to implement austerity measures in response to high inflation and mounting external debt. But these measures, which aimed to stabilize and modernize the economy, instead led to social unrest. By contrast, in the 70s and 80s, Portugal's European neighbors were experiencing much higher levels of growth. France's GDP grew between 4.6% per year, Spain roughly 6%, and Italy around 5%. All the while, Portugal averaged only 1 to 3% per year. The hangover from this is still being felt today and can again have a dramatic impact on the entire European economy. How, you might ask? Well, you see, the short-lived period of growth under Salazar's state of fiscal conservatism and minimal external borrowing had, in just a few decades, dramatically turned into a dependency on Europe Europe's strong growth for survival. Coupled with internal factors like rising wages, reduced competitiveness, and a widening trade deficit, Portugal's debt levels skyrocketed. The situation became particularly dire after the 1973 oil crisis. The country had reached a breaking point. The result? Portugal had no option but to seek financial support from the IMF, building debts that wouldn't be paid off until the year 2000. But then, in 1986, Portugal joined the European Economic Community, a precursor to today's European Union. This significant move started a new journey towards fiscal stability, creating opportunities for unprecedented growth and integration into the broader European market. It was more than an economic lifeline. It symbolized Portugal's commitment to align with some of Europe's strongest economies and reinvent itself. Fast forward to 2023, and the fruits of this strategic decision are evident. By leveraging its EU membership, Portugal gained substantial financial aid, including around €6 billion in grants, boosting its economic prospects. But as a member of the Eurozone, Portugal's monetary policy is determined by the European Central Bank, limiting its ability to respond flexibly to domestic economic challenges. And its vulnerability was laid bare once again as the global financial crisis of 2008 came crashing down. Portugal was mercilessly hit, stalling its economic growth at 0%. The following year, the economy deteriorated even further, contracting by nearly 3%. At the same time, its budget deficit swelled from a concerning 2.6% in 2008 to an alarming 10% by 2009. The spark of a crisis had become a catastrophic explosion, and Portugal was revealed as the biggest crack in the Eurozone. Its banking sector plunged into chaos. Weighed down by non-performing loans and facing a stark decline in repayments, banks teetered perilously close to failure, compelling the government to step in to prevent collapse. By 2011, national debt soared to 106% of its GDP. Eventually, Portugal was left to hopelessly accept another rescue package from the International Monetary Fund and the EU to the tune of a staggering €78 billion. At the same time, it's important to remember that other countries in Europe were also dealing with their own financial troubles. For example, France's debt reached 86% of its GDP, and Germany's debt was at 82% in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. These countries were struggling to pay for their own rescue plans, and now also had to figure out how to help Portugal, all in an effort to keep Europe's financial system from collapsing. And the echoes of this can still be heard today, as Portugal's economic vulnerabilities still pose significant challenges to the stability of the Eurozone. Bailing out struggling member states strains EU resources and erodes confidence in the Union's ability to manage economic challenges effectively, and Portugal's economic dependence underscores much broader structural imbalances within the EU, raising questions about the long-term viability of the European project. But could decades of hardship also pave the way for a remarkable turnaround for Portugal? Its recovery from the 2008 crisis was gradual but determined. GDP growth, initially sluggish, began to pick up pace, averaging 2.7% annually from 2014 to 2019. The gloom of unemployment also receded, dropping to 6.4% by 2019, down from a peak of over 16% in 2013. Foreign direct investment flowed back, signaling a rejuvenated belief in Portugal's economic promise. And yet, just when it seemed like the country was gearing up for a significant recovery, aligning with Europe's broader economic trends, the emergence of COVID-19 presented another unforeseen global challenge. Tourism, the heartbeat of Portugal's economic well-being, stumbled throughout 2020, thrusting the country into another daunting economic struggle. Unemployment, which had seen a hopeful decline, reversed its course, setting the country on a worrying course once again. Data from the IMF painted a stark picture, placing Portugal among the hardest hit in Europe, with the exception of the micro-state of San Marino. This was a sobering moment, a test of Portugal's economic resilience. This time, though, luckily, Portugal did not falter. With the resolve of a nation long accustomed to navigating rough seas, it rallied. In 2020, 2020 alone, the government deployed €7.7 billion in financial aid, a lifeline to businesses and individuals battered by the pandemic storm. Further support came from the European Union, with a substantial injection of €13.4 billion through the Next Generation EU plan. This aid was an investment in Portugal's future, but also a safeguard against Portugal's economic collapse, which could bring down the Eurozone economy. The result? Portugal's economy rebounded, with GDP surging by a robust 5.5% in 2022, a remarkable turnaround from the 13.8% contraction in 2020. But fast forward to January 2024 and the landscape shifts once again. The global economic slowdown casts long shadows over Portugal's future. But what does this mean for Europe? While it's unlikely the European Union is on the verge of disintegration, the significance of Portugal's renewed economic troubles should not be underestimated. Portugal's high public debt, at about 127.3% of its GDP, is well above the EU's 60% threshold, a situation that again raises concerns as, if not managed carefully, this level of debt could lead to serious financial instability in Portugal, and by extension throughout the Eurozone, impacting the bloc's economy, potentially sending it into a tailspin, and not for the first time. And that might not be as far-fetched as you may think. In the aftermath of Portugal's closely contested parliamentary elections, the nation witnessed a significant political shift. The centre-right Democratic Alliance, led by Luís Montenegro, emerged victorious, just about, in a nail-biting finish that saw both major political forces, the Democratic Alliance and the Socialist Party PS, securing a near-identical share of votes at just under 29% each. If anything, this highlighted the political landscape's deep divisions and the surging influence of the far right, with the Chega party capturing 18% of the vote and positioning itself as a formidable third force in Portuguese politics. This sets the stage for a critical shake-up of Portugal's political landscape, its future direction, and by extension, the stability of the Eurozone. To find out more about the challenges Spain is facing, check out our video linked here.